My name is Lawrence Packer, 28 years old. At that hour of the night, I should have been asleep, but instead I sat hunched at the kitchen table, fingertips smudged with ink, folding wedding invitations under the soft yellow glow of a single lamp. The table looked like an assembly line of dreams, our names engraved in silver script, the promise of a future stamped on thick ivory paper. The apartment was silent, too silent. Calvin had promised he'd be home by midnight. My phone screen showed 4:13 a.m. when the lock on the front door finally clicked. I didn't even look up at first. My stomach was already twisted in knots. He froze in the doorway when he saw me sitting there awake. He hadn't expected that. His casual hey fell flat like a bad actor missing his line. He tossed his keys into the bowl by the door, trying to look relaxed, but the way his eyes darted to the invitations spread out in front of me betrayed him. "It's past 4, Calvin," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I know. Sorry. Lost track of time." He grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, twisting off the cap with deliberate slowness. He wouldn't look at me. "Where were you?" He took a long swallow, throat bobbing before answering. "Out with the guys. You know how it is." "Which guys?" He turned, then leaning against the counter with that smirk I'd once found charming, but now felt like a blade pressed against my patience. "Why does it matter?" "Because you said you'd be home by midnight." "Because it's 4 in the morning." "Because I'm sitting here with invitations to our wedding, Calvin, while you stroll in hours late without a single text or call." Something hardened in his eyes. He set the bottle down with a soft thud and delivered the line that changed everything. "If you really love me, you'd trust me completely." The air in the room thickened. That sentence wasn't just a dodge, it was a weapon sharpened by contempt. I stared at him, at the man I thought I'd marry, and felt something inside me shift, like glass cracking under pressure. Slowly, I laid down the invitation I was holding, the one that read, "Lawrence Packer and Calvin Foster, forever." I met his gaze. "If you really love me," I said, each word measured like steps to the gallows, "you'd give me a reason to." The silence that followed was suffocating. He broke it with a laugh low and dismissive, the same laugh he'd used whenever I questioned things lately. "Wow, really? You're going to need me to file a report every time I go out." "No," I said, standing. "I need you to explain why you come home at 4 a.m. without warning." "That's not love, Calvin. That's disrespect." "I don't need to explain myself to you, Lawrence. We're getting married, not signing up for prison." "You're right," I said softly. "We're not getting married." The water bottle stopped halfway to his lip. "What?" "You heard me. The wedding's off." His laugh died. "You're joking." "Over this? Because I stayed out late." "No," I whispered, my voice shaking but resolute. "Because you think accountability is optional. Because instead of honesty, you're manipulating me into silence." He slammed the bottle onto the counter. Manipulation. "I'm asking you to trust me." "Trust isn't demanded, Calvin. It's earned. And right now, you've earned suspicion." For the first time, I saw panic flicker across his face. His voice dropped, pleading. "Lawrence, wait. Let me clarify what I meant." "No need. You were clear." I walked toward the bedroom. My bedroom, technically, since the apartment was mine long before he moved in. I flung open the closet, hands shaking as I pulled his clothes from hangers. "What are you doing?" he shouted, following me. "Helping you pack." "Pack. At 4 in the morning. You're kicking me out now." "Ironic, isn't it?" I said, shoving a pile of shirts into a suitcase. "Since apparently 4 in the morning is the perfect time for you to be out and about." He tried every tactic. Anger, sarcasm, then desperation. He swore he'd only lost track of time. He swore he was at Avalon, the new club, with Becca and Tori. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Becca's story from 1 a.m. showed her and Tori at a house party nowhere near Avalon. Calvin's face drained of color. "They left early," he muttered. "I stayed with other people." "Which people?" His jaw clenched. "Why does it matter?" "Because lying matters, Calvin." He tried again, voice cracking now. "Fine. Yes, I wasn't with them the whole time. But that doesn't mean I was doing anything wrong." "Then why lie?" Because of this, his voice rose raw and defensive. "Because of your interrogation, your paranoia. This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you." I stared at him, exhausted. "No, Calvin. This is why I can't marry you. Because when the truth is simple, you choose lies." By dawn, he was gone, a duffel bag in hand, promises and curses trailing behind him. My apartment felt hollow, yet strangely lighter. But as I sank back into the chair by the table, staring at the stack of invitations, relief tangled with dread, I knew Calvin. He wouldn't disappear quietly. He'd fight Twist Claw to keep control of the story. And I had no idea how far he'd go. The morning after Calvin left, I woke to a phone buzzing like an angry hornet on the nightstand. 73 missed calls, over 200 unread texts. His name, his mother's, his sister's, even numbers I didn't recognize. I let the phone buzz itself into silence, then dragged myself into the kitchen. The invitations still sat on the table, untouched, ghostly evidence of a life that had already dissolved. My stomach turned. By 8 a.m., the buzzing started again. This time a familiar voice pierced through the voicemail recording. "Lawrence, honey. It's Patricia. Calvin's devastated. He didn't mean what he said. Whatever happened last night, you two can work it out. Don't throw away your future over one fight." I deleted the message before she finished. My future had already been thrown away by her son. At 7:30 sharp, there was pounding on my door. I opened it to find Melissa Calvin's younger sister standing with her arms crossed. Her face carried the same stormy defiance I'd seen in his. "We need to talk," she announced. "No, we don't," I replied, holding the door half shut. "You're destroying my brother over nothing. He went out with friends, that's all." "Which friends?" I asked flatly. Because Becca and Tori were somewhere else entirely. I saw it myself. Melissa's expression faltered. Eyes flicking away for just a moment. A crack in the mask. She knew more than she was saying. "That's not the point," she snapped, recovering. "The point is trust." "Exactly," I said, my voice calm now. "And I don't trust liars." Then I shut the door in her face. She shouted through the wood for another minute, then stormed off down the hall. I leaned against the door, breathing deeply, shaking. They were circling me, already trying to rewrite the story. But I wouldn't let them. By mid-morning, I forced myself into action. The caterer kept the deposit but canceled the rest. The photographer, a kind man I'd chosen myself, offered to refund everything but the booking fee. "Seen too many brides get stuck in bad marriages," he told me kindly. "Good on you for having boundaries." Every vendor call was another knife twisting in my chest, but every cancellation was also a step out of the quicksand. That afternoon, the doorbell rang again. This time it was movers. 2 men in uniform stood with clipboards and a box truck parked outside. "Here for Calvin Foster's belongings," one said. I frowned. "He sent you." "Yes, ma'am, we've got a list." He handed it over and I scanned it. Clothes, electronics, fair enough. But then the television I'd bought 2 years before I even met Calvin. The coffee maker, a gift from my mother. Half the kitchenware things I owned long before we lived together. And laughably, the engagement ring. I handed the list back. "You can take what I've already packed in the living room. Nothing else." One of them muttered under his breath. "She said you'd be difficult." "She," I echoed sharply. "That's funny, because she lied about a lot of things. Take what's by the door. That's it." They exchanged uneasy glances, but complied, carting away the pre-approved boxes I'd packed after he left. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Lawrence." His voice. Rough, angry. "You kept my TV." "Your TV?" I almost laughed. "I have the receipt from 2019. I bought it before I even knew you. We watched it together. That makes it ours." "That's not how ownership works, Calvin." "And where's my ring?" "The ring I bought," I said, incredulous. "It was a gift. A conditional gift. No wedding, no ring. That's literally the law." "I'll sue you." "Then tell your lawyer to bring snacks. He'll need them when I show him the receipts and screenshots of you lying about where you were at 4 a.m. Click. I dropped the phone onto the table, heart racing. By day 2, Calvin escalated. His Instagram flooded with cryptic posts about surviving emotional abuse, quotes about narcissistic partners, and melodramatic stories that painted him as the victim. The comments were predictable. "You deserve better. King. Her loss." But then buried under the praise, a comment from someone unexpected. "Weird. I worked at Avalon all night. Didn't see you there once." My lips curved into the faintest smile. Cracks were showing in his story, and this time they weren't mine to defend. That night, I sat alone on the couch, lights dim, staring at the stack of invitations still waiting on the table. I thought of the life I'd been planning, a home filled with warmth, loyalty, laughter. Instead, I was watching it unravel thread by thread. And yet, relief pulsed underneath the grief. I hadn't lost a future. I'd escaped a trap. I pressed my palms flat against the table, grounding myself. Calvin wasn't done. I could feel it in my bones. His family, his lies, his theatrics, they'd all return louder, nastier. But so would I. This wasn't the end of the fight. This was the beginning. By the third day, Calvin's victim campaign had shifted into high gear. His Facebook timeline was plastered with half-baked quotes about freedom from controlling partners and learning who truly loves you. His captions read like journal entries from a martyr. People believed him. Mutual acquaintances, old classmates, even some distant relatives of mine chimed in with sympathy. "Stay strong, brother. She'll regret it." I scrolled in silence, feeling heat rise in my chest. But then something curious appeared. Under one of his posts about being at Avalon with the guys, a comment popped up. "That's funny. I bartended at Avalon that night. Didn't see you once." The comment vanished an hour later, deleted, but not before I screenshotted it. It was the first thread unraveling from his carefully spun web. That afternoon, my friend Marco called. His voice was hesitant, as though he'd been holding on to something heavy. "Lawrence, I wasn't sure if I should say this before, but remember Craig's bachelor party last month?" I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Yes. Why?" "I saw Calvin there. Not at the party itself, but at the resort. He was with a woman. At the pool bar. Real cozy. I thought maybe it was a cousin or coworker, but after hearing about the breakup, I figured you should know." The room tilted around me. Describe her. Tall brunette, sharp jawline. They were laughing, touching arms. Looked intimate. "And you didn't say anything then?" "I didn't want to stir drama without proof," Marco admitted. "But now you deserve to know." I thanked him, hung up, and sat motionless on the edge of the couch. My mind played and replayed Calvin's face the night of the invitations. His indignant laugh. His deflection. The pieces were falling together, and the picture they painted was betrayal. I needed confirmation, something undeniable. That night I walked into the building's security office, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Visitor logs," I said to the guard, my voice tighter than I intended. "For the garage, last month." He frowned, then shrugged. "All right, what's the unit number?" When he slid the clipboard across the counter, I forced myself to look down. My eyes scanned rows of plates, times, and signatures, and then there it was. White BMW. Visiting our unit, multiple times. Always during the day while I was at work. Always leaving before I got home. My stomach nodded. The name attached to the license plate hit me like ice water. Clara Reyes, a woman from his office, the one Calvin had once brushed off casually at a holiday party. She's basically like a sister. I remembered her handshake that night, firm and perfunctory, the way her gaze lingered on Calvin longer than polite. I had felt a flicker of unease back then, but shoved it aside. Love makes you blind in the most convenient ways. I sat in my car in the garage, gripping the steering wheel, unable to move. He hadn't just lied. He'd built an entire second life under my nose. A coworker, frequent visits, cover stories, a choreography of deceit. The betrayal wasn't just about Clara. It was about how easily he had dismissed me, how confidently he had looked me in the eyes and said, "If you really loved me, you'd trust me completely." The audacity of it made me laugh. Bitter, jagged laughter that echoed in the car until my throat hurt. That evening, Calvin called again from another blocked number. This time I let it ring until voicemail. "Lawrence, you're overreacting. People fight. Couples fight. But you're destroying us. Over what?" A late night. Think about the future. Think about what people will say when they find out you threw everything away. I deleted it without saving. People. Always his concern. Not me, not us. Just the performance of us. But I wasn't ready to go public yet, not without proof strong enough to withstand his endless spin. I texted Marco. "Can you get me photos from that weekend? Anything with him in the background." He responded within minutes on it. "Check your email tomorrow." Later that night, I sat at my desk staring at the pile of invitations. They were no longer wedding stationery. They were evidence. Every card printed with his name beside mine felt like a lie fossilized in ink. I picked one up, ran my fingers over the silver embossing. Then I tore it in half. The sound was sharp, liberating. One by one, I ripped them all until the table was littered with shredded futures. When I finally collapsed onto the couch surrounded by fragments, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Clarity. Calvin thought he could smear me, manipulate me, bury me under the weight of his family's pressure and his crocodile tears. But I had something he didn't. The truth. And soon I'd have the receipts. The next morning, Marco delivered. My inbox pinged with a message titled, "You need to see this." Inside were 3 grainy photos from the bachelor party weekend, Calvin at a poolside bar, leaning far too close to a brunette woman in a red sundress. Her hand rested on his arm, his smile wide and unguarded, in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Proof. I saved every photo to a locked folder. It was time to stop playing defense. That afternoon, I sat across from Sophia Tran, an attorney, whose reputation for precision preceded her. Her office smelled faintly of lemon polish and quiet authority. I spread the photos, the parking logs, and the screenshots across her desk like cards in a losing hand. She adjusted her glasses, scanning each one carefully. First things first, she said. The ring is yours. Legally, it's a conditional gift tied to the marriage. No marriage, no return. That's ironclad. I let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I was holding. But she continued tapping the visitor logs. If he tries to claim any financial stake in your apartment or assets, this undermines him completely. Document everything. Every call, every text, every attempt at intimidation. Men like this. They don't retreat gracefully. Her words rang heavy with warning. I nodded. He's already started playing the victim online. Sophia gave a small, knowing smile. Then it's only a matter of time before he escalates. That evening, I composed an email to Patricia, his mother. No anger, no accusations, just evidence. Subject line. Since you think I'm being unreasonable. Inside, I attached the visitor logs showing Clara's BMW at my building, Marco's photos from the resort, and the Instagram comment contradicting Calvin's alibi. I wrote only one sentence. Ask your son about these, then decide if I'm unreasonable. I hit send and waited. The reply came within an hour. Patricia's tone had shifted completely. Lawrence, is this real? Every bit of it. He told us you were controlling, that you wouldn't let him have friends. I'm so sorry. We didn't raise him to be this way. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something resembling accountability. Her voice trembled through the phone when she called shame, lacing every word. She admitted Calvin had demanded they call me, pressure me, but she hadn't realized the depth of his lies. I almost pitied her. Almost. But Calvin wasn't finished. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The words chilled me. I have photos and videos from our relationship. You don't want them public. Give me the ring and we can end this peacefully. For a moment, bile rose in my throat. Was he seriously threatening me with revenge porn? Then something inside me snapped. I actually laughed, sharp and humorless. I typed back, go ahead. Post them. I'll post the garage footage of Clara leaving my apartment. You wouldn't dare try me. 3 dots blinked. Then nothing. Silence. The next morning, Marco called again. You won't believe this, he said. Clara's boyfriend found out about Calvin. He's furious. He confronted Clara and she cracked. Admitted everything. Words spreading. I sat back, letting the information settle. The dominoes were falling faster than I'd anticipated. By noon, Clara's boyfriend had messaged me directly, I'm sorry. I didn't know. If you need me to confirm anything, I will. I thanked him and closed my laptop. My hands trembled with adrenaline. Calvin's narrative was collapsing not just in my world, but in his. The carefully curated image of the wronged fiancé was eroding under the weight of his own arrogance. But victory didn't feel like triumph, not yet. Late that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My apartment was silent, except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional car passing below. The air was heavy, restless. Calvin's words haunted me still. If you really loved me, you'd trust me completely. Love. I thought bitterly, isn't blind trust. It's earned brick by brick with truth and respect. And he had dismantled it stone by stone until nothing remained. I turned onto my side, pulling the blanket up around me, and whispered into the dark. You underestimated me, Calvin, and that will be your undoing. By the end of the week, Calvin's house of cards was toppling. Patricia's calls grew shorter, her tone sharper, as if she was seeing her son clearly for the first time. His father, Doug, barely spoke at all, just sighed into the receiver like a man who'd lost the strength to defend him. But Melissa, his sister, held out longer. She texted me one night, you're ruining his life. You don't understand how much he loves you. I almost ignored it, but something in me wanted closure. If he loved me, he wouldn't have invited Clara into my home when I was at work. Her reply was delayed. When it came, it was just one word. Sorry. Even she couldn't keep pretending. The next morning, Patricia called again, voice trembling. Lawrence, Calvin told us you're pregnant. The words sliced through me like ice. Pregnant. Yes, he said you found out yesterday morning. Is it true? I actually laughed, bitter and sharp. Patricia. I haven't touched your son in over 2 months. He wanted to save intimacies for the wedding. Ask yourself how that's possible. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then Patricia's broken whisper. Oh God. By afternoon, Doug texted me himself. "She's not pregnant. We're handling this. I'm sorry for everything our son has put you through." It should have felt like victory, but all I felt was exhaustion. Calvin was willing to drag unborn children into his lies if it meant keeping control. The realization hollowed me out. A few days later, his lies caught up with him at work. Clara, desperate to salvage her own relationship, confessed everything to HR. Calvin's employer had a strict policy against relationships with colleagues. Within 48 hours, he was unemployed. The fallout spread like wildfire. Mutual friends who'd once defended him quietly unfollowed. Two couples disinvited him from their weddings, afraid he'd bring drama. His social circle shrank until it was just him, angry, alone, and spiraling. And still he wouldn't stop. Moving day arrived like a storm cloud. My new apartment was smaller, but brighter, filled with promise instead of ghosts. I was boxing the last of my books when the knock came. When I opened the door, Calvin stood there, flanked by his father. Doug looked mortified, shoulders slumped, but Calvin's eyes burned with manic determination. "Lawrence, please," he said, stepping forward. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Doug raised a hand as if to hold him back. "Calvin." "No," I cut in my voice firm. "You don't get 5 minutes. You've had years." He pushed anyway, words tumbling out fast. "I made mistakes, okay? But we had 4 years. 4 years, Lawrence. You don't just throw that away." I set down the box in my hands and looked him dead in the eye. "You threw it away when you crawled into my bed smelling like another woman. You threw it away when you turned lies into lullabies." He flinched but pressed harder. "Clara meant nothing. It was a distraction. I wanted you. I still want you." I almost laughed. "You think you were special to her? You weren't even Thursday night. You were just a gap between her real plans. You weren't her future, Calvin. You were her filler." His face crumpled, the bravado slipping away. "That's not I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to. Just like I didn't want to know you were lying until it was shoved in my face." Doug placed a hand on his son's shoulder, voice low and tired. "Enough, Calvin." The woman said no. But Calvin still lingered, eyes searching mine, desperate for some crack in my armor. I gave him none. "Everything of yours was in the boxes the movers took," I said coldly. "Anything left here is mine." His voice rose, pleading now. "My grandmother's necklace, the one in the jewelry box." "Already gave it to your mother last week," I interrupted. "Check your facts before you lie again." Doug tightened his grip, turning his son around. "That's it. We're done here." As they walked away, Doug caught my eye and mouthed, "Sorry." The door closed with a soft click, but the echo inside me was final, like the slamming of a prison cell, only I was the one set free. That night, as I sat on the floor of my new apartment surrounded by unpacked boxes, I let myself breathe. No phone buzzing with accusations, no family knocking with demands, just silence, blessed, healing silence. Calvin had tried everything: manipulation, smear campaigns, theft, blackmail, even a fake pregnancy. And still he couldn't undo the truth. He had lost. I traced the rim of a wine glass with my fingertips, staring out the window at the city lights. For the first time in years, the world felt wide again, full of possibility. But deep down I knew one thing with certainty. Calvin wasn't done. Not yet. He was the kind of man who needed to win, even if it meant burning everything around him. And that was the most dangerous kind of man of all. Karma didn't just knock on Calvin's door, it broke it down. Within a week of his desperate attempt at reconciliation, Clara detonated the last of his defenses. I hadn't spoken to her directly, but word filtered through mutual contacts. Apparently, after Doug dragged Calvin back home, Clara's boyfriend unearthed months of messages. Furious, he threatened to go public with everything. Clara, scrambling to save herself, confessed that she and Calvin hadn't been exclusive at all. He was one of several special clients. The irony hit me like a bitter laugh. Calvin, who had sneered at me about trust, hadn't even been anyone's priority. He was Tuesday and Thursday, nothing more. By then, his job was already gone. Once HR received the complaint, his employer wasted no time. The gym where he worked prided itself on its reputation, and Calvin's entanglements violated every code of conduct. One email later, his access card stopped working. The ripple effects were brutal. 2 weddings he was supposed to attend as a groomsman uninvited him. Mutual friends, tired of his lies, quietly chose my side. His surviving abuse posts lost traction after screenshots circulated of him with Clara at the resort. Even Melissa, his once staunch defender, posted cryptically about recognizing toxic people, even in family. It was a slow-motion implosion, and I watched it from the safety of my new apartment, no longer trembling, but strangely detached, as though I were seeing the story of a stranger unravel. But there was one last loose thread, the ring. I'd tucked it away in my bank's deposit box, but every time I thought of it, a weight pressed on my chest. It wasn't just jewelry, it was a reminder of everything I'd almost bound myself to. So 2 weeks later, I walked into the jewelry store where it had first sparkled under the showroom lights. The manager, a man with sharp eyes and gentle hands, examined it with professional detachment. "Oh, this one," he murmured. "I recognize the piece. A young woman came in asking about it not long ago. Said her fiancé had bought it here, wanted to know about upgrading the setting." My lips curled into a humorless smile. Brunette. About this tall, I raised a hand. He nodded. "That's her. Natalie in the old script. Clara in mine." The women changed, but the betrayal was always the same. I sold the ring that day for $9,500. Less than it was worth, but enough. Enough to cover the deposits I'd lost. Enough to plant a seed for a new beginning. As I walked out with the receipt in hand, I felt lighter, as though I'd pawned off not just a diamond, but years of deception. Back home, I spread the cash on my counter and stared at it. Paper bills cold and impersonal, yet suddenly powerful. They weren't tainted by lies. They were mine. I used part of it to settle the debts with vendors tying off loose ends. The rest went into savings for a down payment on a smaller but better apartment. Brick by brick, I was reclaiming the life Calvin had tried to control. But karma wasn't finished with him. Clara, furious that he'd lied about being exclusive, exposed more. Screenshots, texts, photos. Calvin had rotated not one, not two, but 3 women while promising me forever. Each of them thought they were special. Each realized they weren't. The fallout was vicious. His reputation in their social circles disintegrated. Whispers turned into outright mockery. He became a cautionary tale, the kind of man you warn your friends about. Even Patricia stopped defending him. One night she called me, voice heavy with grief. "Lawrence, I don't know what to say anymore. We're ashamed. He's not the man we thought we raised." For the first time, I almost believed her tears, but sympathy had no home left in me. Meanwhile, my world was slowly reassembling. I painted my new apartment in soft tones of cream and sage light, streaming through wide windows that Calvin had never touched. I bought a second-hand couch, laughed with Marco over cheap pizza while assembling furniture, even slept a full night without jolting awake at phantom phone buzzes. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, honest, quiet, peaceful. And in that peace, I realized something profound. I hadn't just escaped Calvin. I'd escaped the version of myself who thought his approval was oxygen. The woman who tiptoed around his moods, silenced her intuition, believed love meant swallowing doubt. That Lawrence was gone. One evening, as the sun bled orange over the horizon, I stood by my window, wine glass in hand, watching the city lights flicker on. My phone buzzed with a new message from Marco. "Freedom celebration trip this weekend. The guys are turning the canceled wedding into a getaway." I smiled, warmth pooling in my chest. Yes, I thought. That's exactly what I needed. Because while Calvin's world was collapsing, mine was just beginning to rebuild. And for the first time in a long time, the horizon felt wide open. The day that was supposed to be my wedding arrived quietly, almost cruelly ordinary. No veil, no aisle, no vows whispered beneath chandeliers. Instead, I was standing on a windswept cliff an hour outside the city, a paper cup of coffee in hand, watching the sunrise with Marco and 2 of my closest friends. "This is better than champagne toast anyway," Marco said, nudging me. "Freedom tastes stronger than bubbly." We laughed, the sound raw but healing. That weekend, my would-be bachelor party had become something else entirely, a freedom trip. Hiking, late-night fires, cheap beer, and unfiltered honesty. Instead of promises of forever, I toasted to survival. To choosing myself. Back in the city, Calvin's descent accelerated. Clara had gone silent, but not before unleashing enough screenshots to ruin him socially. His jobs dried up. Rumors spread like wildfire. By then, he wasn't a fiancé, or even a man worth pity, just a story people whispered, a cautionary tale parents warned their daughters about. Patricia stopped calling altogether. Melissa unfollowed him on social media. Even Doug, the father, who'd once stood behind him, was overheard saying he needs to live with the mess he made. Calvin had become the mess. One evening, I received an unexpected message request on my phone. The preview of the text made my stomach lurch. "Lawrence, I know you hate me, but please read this." Against my better judgment, I opened it. I never meant for things to go this far. I was confused. I made bad choices. I loved you. I really did. I just got caught up in the attention and the excitement. Clara made me feel wanted in a way you didn't anymore. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just understanding. I'm in therapy now. I'm working on myself. I hope someday you can see I'm not a bad person, just someone who made bad choices. Take care. I read it twice. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't ache. For the first time, his words felt small, hollow, powerless. Because I remembered the lies, the gaslighting, the 4 a.m. silence that split us open, the threats, the blackmail, the fake pregnancy. I remembered tearing those invitations to shreds, the sound of paper breaking louder than his voice. Almost, I felt sorry for him. But pity isn't love. Pity is just the shadow of what once was. I deleted the message, blocked the number. Therapy helped me untangle the rest. Not because Calvin had left scars too deep to heal, but because I needed to understand myself. Why I'd ignored the alarms. Why I'd mistaken manipulation for devotion. The answer came slowly, like light seeping under a locked door. I had believed that love meant sacrifice, that trust meant silence, that loyalty meant swallowing doubt whole. But it didn't. It never did. Love, real love, demands truth. It doesn't hide in clubs at 4 a.m. It doesn't require you to close your eyes when the evidence is plain. And so I learned to open mine. The ring money became the foundation of a new life. My apartment, small but bright, felt more like home than the cavernous rooms I once shared with him. The sage walls I painted myself, the mismatched furniture built with friends. The thrift store dishes stacked haphazardly in the cupboard, every detail was mine. I filled the silence with music, laughter, the scratch of a pen across new journals. I learned Spanish on weeknights, hiked on weekends, called my mother more often. I became more myself than I'd been in years. Some days I even smiled when I thought of him. Not because I missed him, but because I didn't. On the anniversary of the day we met, I stood at the ocean's edge, the surf curling around my ankles, cold and alive. I whispered to the wind. If I really loved him, I would have trusted him. Good thing I loved myself more than the lie he tried to sell me. The tide pulled the words away, scattering them into foam, and with them, the last remnants of his hold on me. Calvin's story became a rumor. Mine became a lesson. Trust your gut. When something feels off, it probably is. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And above all, choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and gold. I felt no bitterness, no rage, just quiet gratitude. Gratitude that I had walked away. Gratitude that I had survived. Gratitude that I had been strong enough to rip the invitations, to shut the door, to keep walking when he begged for 5 minutes. My story wasn't about the man who betrayed me. It was about the woman who chose freedom. And that I realized was the real forever.